Teenage drinking is a massive problem in most Western cultures. We hear a bit about it here on TV, but let me assure you, it is the same everywhere in the world. America, Australia, England, China, all the Western cultures and some of the Eastern cultures all have an issue with teenage drinking. A particularly horrific example of this is the TV show Ladder to Lady.
I love this show.
What's it called?
Ladder to Lady. What happens in that TV show is that young women who don't behave very well in public are taught how to behave properly. We're not talking about girls who say the wrong sort of things, are being taught to use nice language. We're talking about chicks who go out, get trash, start fights, like literally pick fights, grab a guy and have sex with him. Like typical Friday, Saturday night. They get taught how to dress, how to speak, how to eat, how to walk, how to dance like a lady. Not just, a nice lady, but like Diana, Lady Diana.
There's also a Tool Academy for the guys.
Yeah,
I love that one.
I knew there was a dude one, I didn't know which one it was. Now, I haven't seen like lots. I've seen a couple of episodes. It's on late at night. It's pretty trashy. I've seen a couple of them. What's interesting is they'll leave an opportunity of temptation open for the young women. Okay, so an example that I was thinking of was they set up this really nice dinner, and they got some of the local nobility. Like seriously, this is in England, and they've got lords and stuff who come and have dinner at the place where they're staying. Now, this is pretty slack, and I was offended because what happened was they finished the dinner, and then the booze came out, and the guys, the male guests, who were supposed to be giving the example of how to behave, well, they were encouraging the trashy behaviour of the young women. So there was a double standard on view where, for some reason, they thought it was okay for the guys to do this, but not for the girls. So these girls had been doing well, they got trashed, they made a mess, and then they got punished for it the next day. Now, our cultures have reacted against alcohol in a variety of ways. So early on, they were free and easy. Anyone could drink any time. Well, we're talking a long time ago. Okay, even to the extent of alcohol being used instead of water on long voyages because you could get diseases and stuff in your water, but apparently they didn't like booze. In fact, sometimes alcohol was currency. Have you guys studied the Rum Rebellion?
Mm-hmm.
So what was going on there was basically that you would do your work for the barracks and you would get paid in alcohol. And you would drink some of your, literally drink your pay, and the rest you would use to buy food and stuff. Now at some stage people decided that alcohol was a bad thing and no one should be allowed to drink at all. So those were the days of Prohibition. And in America you'd have lots of states. So I'm not interrupting anything, am I right?
Selective history study.
Okay. In America there'd be some states that were dry, you're not allowed to sell alcohol, and other states that were wet, that is, you could buy alcohol in them. And so there was a lot of money was made by people smuggling alcohol out of the wet states into the dry states. Something interesting, Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville? No, it's not Nashville. Louisville, Kentucky. That's where they make Jack Daniels. That's a dry town. You're not allowed to.
I don't have nice food, I'm telling you.
Actually, it's just a good reminder for me to turn that on. Sorry. In Louisville, Kentucky, that's a dry state, a dry region, even though they make Jack Daniels there. Here in Australia, we've swung all around. At the moment, alcohol is legal, but it's taxed. Not for the under 18s, but it is okay for the over 18s. You're not allowed to do too much when you're drunk. No driving, no operating heavy machinery, riding a push bike, seriously. Seriously, yeah. Or going to work. I know a guy who was breathalyzed on his push bike. Because you're in control of the vehicle. And you could actually cause an accident because you could swerve onto the road. I know, it sounds crazy. But did you know that Australia as a nation is one of the highest per person consuming nations on the planet? Now the question is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or does it not really matter? Alcohol has been something that's been around for a long, long time. Who can tell me what the first miracle that Jesus did? What was that? Water into wine. Okay? John chapter 2, this was his first sign. Before that, there were references from as early as 1000 BC in the Bible talking about alcohol and how to, using alcohol. And we have evidence, archaeological evidence of alcohol vessels and alcohol being used up to 5,000 years before Jesus. So 7,000 years ago, people were boozing up. And for some reason, every generation thinks that they are the first ones to work out how good this stuff is, and no one else really understands what to do with this wonder of the modern age. Now, the Bible speaks of alcohol a fair amount, not massively, but somewhat. You might have missed it a few weeks ago, but when you had spoke about wisdom and folly, calling out to the young man, which one was it that had prepared wine for the young men to come and drink? Can anyone remember? It was wisdom. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a point. You didn't go, oh, look at this. It was just wisdom. Folly apparently was happy to drink so long as it was stolen. That is to say, alcohol in and of itself is not necessarily an evil thing. Indeed, in Psalm 104, verse 15, wine is given by God to make the heart of mankind happy. So to start with, alcohol seems to have a good spin on it. Paul says in 1 Timothy that everything created by God is good and to be received with thanksgiving. Now that sounds good. However, alcohol has a sinister side to it as well. Listen to Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1. Wine is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. Or chapter 21, verse 17. He who loves pleasure will become poor, and whoever loves wine and oil will never be rich. You've seen people who have had too much to drink, haven't you? I used to work in a bar, I saw a lot. There are one or two people most of the time. Either they're comatose and need to be shaken, or carried out, or the people picking a fight. When we hear about alcohol in the news, it's almost always about some teenagers getting into a fight after they're down, half a bottle of scotch. The other times you see having people too much to drink, they do stupid things. You go to a party and the same person gets drunk, and always gets drunk and stands up and makes a fool of themselves. That's called karaoke. Wine is a mocker. It makes a fool of someone who drinks too much because they do stupid things. Beer does make you want to fight. I have watched it, I have seen it. Guys are perfectly normal, they have 4 or 5 schooners, and if they're still standing, they're looking for a fight, and they don't really care who they hit. Girls get violent when they're drunk too. As for not getting rich, so the second bit, if you love wine and oil, they're expensive things. If you like being the best, surrounded by the nice things, and it's alcohol, well, don't expect to be rich because you're going to spend all your money on it. I've seen this happen. Firsthand when I was living in Kingswood Park. You spend all your money on the booze. And family after family after family has seen that happen when mum or dad has a drinking problem. All the money goes on the grog and the cigarettes rather than on clothes and school uniforms. The first school that my kids were at had a breakfast club because the kids, 90% of the kids did not eat breakfast because mum and dad either didn't have enough food or they were hungover.